Okay, hi everyone. So like I said before, maybe some of you weren't on yet. If you're going to be cooking along, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to go fairly quickly through everything. And then you can look at the video later. It should be up on our website by Tuesday if you want to look at it at that point. Otherwise, the recipes are pretty self-explanatory. So this is a typical Persian barbecue. This at home quite often, especially when my husband's in town, but even when he's not, we because we like it so much. Sometimes we only do one of the meat types, like the chicken kebab or the ground beef kebab, but when you're having a big group, it's nice to have both. One of the things I'll mention, because in the recipes, I indicated that you would, when you're making the chicken skewers, you would put the veggies between the pieces of chicken, and you can certainly do that. I'm doing them separate because we're only cooking a couple right now, and then we're going to do the rest of this later when we have family over this evening. So I'm going to do chicken skewers, vegetable skewers, and ground beef skewers all separately. But when you're doing it yourself, feel free to put the vegetables in between the chicken skewers. It looks really pretty and makes a nice presentation. So to get started, because the rice takes quite a while, we're going to start with the rice. And if you've been with me before, you have seen some of this before, but I'm going to go through it again. So to get started, we're going to come over here, and I'm going to explain that we're going to take, for this recipe, I'm going to do 3 cups of rice, just because that's kind of what it takes to do a nice pan full in this pan that I use. So I'm putting 3 cups of basmati rice into my pan. And now I'm going to come over to my sink. All right, now I'm going to rinse my rice. So I'm just putting water in the rice, and I'm kind of swirling it around. This is going to be kind of not cold, not hot, just kind of room temperature water. You're going to swirl your rice around with the water, and this is to kind of remove some of the starch. You can see how cloudy the water is. So I'm going to dump that water, carefully, so that I'm not dumping any of the rice, just letting the water go. And do it again. And I kind of do this until I'm sure that it's not as cloudy when I do it. Usually about 3 times is what I do. You might lose a grain or 2, don't worry about that. But if you pour carefully, you won't lose your rice. 1 more time, probably. And the reason we do this, like I said, is to get some of that starch off the surface of the rice, because Persian rice is supposed to be very loose. It's not supposed to be clumpy and stuck together like other Asian rice is. All right, now I'm going to take some of this water. And honestly, you don't really have to worry about it, because this type of rice that we're doing is the type that's going to cook partially and then be dumped out. So I would just say fill your pan so that there's a good inch or so over the top of your rice to give it plenty of room to boil underneath. Okay, carefully, Alex. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to turn my rice on right here. There we go. And I'm going to put a little bit of oil in my rice, just a half a teaspoon or so. And my salt is here. Just maybe a teaspoon or so of salt.
I love how you measure, Tamara.
Sorry?
I love how you measure.
It's about a half a teaspoon per cup of rice is what we've figured out. But yes, it's pretty much by eyeballs for me. All right, now I'm gonna stir that up. And I've got that starting it on high to get it boiling. You just want to keep an eye on it because if it does boil over, you'll hear it. And I have a gas stove, so you really hear it. It hisses when the water hits the flame. But even on an electric stove, you would notice. So I just kind of put the lid on gently. I don't really put it on all the way. I kind of have it cracked here, so it's not really fitted tight, just so that it's not going to boil over too quickly. All right, let's come back over to the counter. I'm going to rinse my hands. Okay, so while that's getting started, the next thing we're going to do is get our kebabs going because those are also going to take a while to cook. So once we have those going and out on the grill, we'll come back in and do the salads and the doog, the yogurt drink. So rice is going, and let's see, Alex, you want to give me the Jujeh back, please? So the chicken kebab is called Jujeh. And as you could see in the recipe that I gave you, I did indicate that you should probably have marinated this either overnight or started it this morning because it really is helpful if the chicken is in the marinade for, I'd say, a good 6 hours or so. You can do it much quicker and it's fine, but it won't have infused the flavor into the chicken the way it does if you really marinate it for several hours. So I did a couple here to get started and to show you. Now these are my chicken skewers that I use for the Jujeh and for the vegetables. These are a thinner skewer. I'll show you the ones we use for the meat in just a minute. If you don't have these, you can always use, whatever bamboo skewers, whatever skewers you have, like bamboo skewers is what I was thinking, that you can purchase in the store. I will say if you're going to do those, it's a good idea to soak those in water for 20 minutes or so before you put the meat on them. And that way your skewers are going to be less likely to burn because they'll be soaked with water. Another thing that you'll notice is that I don't have my chicken all the way at the end of my skewer on either end because you'll see when we go out to the grill, this is not going to lay on the grill. It's going to rest above the grill. And so I need just enough chicken on here that it's going to be above the grill, but this is going to have to rest on other parts of the grill. So we can't have too much chicken on here. We know pretty roughly how much we can put on our skewers. So you would have to know that. But if you're going to use those bamboo skewers, I'm sure, you can fill those fairly full. So I'll just show you one more time here, one last time with this last bit or two here. As you can see, I have a big old bowl here of my Jujeh. Now, if you notice, this is chicken breast that I've chopped up into squares. I'd say 1 inch or 1.5 inch square is good. Then it's 2 cups of plain yogurt. Be very careful that you don't get the vanilla yogurt. That's happened to me before, and that's not going to taste good. You don't want it sweet. You want the plain yogurt. I like to use the full fat or whole milk for this. If you're really watching it, you can go ahead and use the 2% or 1%. You can also use Greek yogurt with this if you like. And then what you do is you use your box grater like this, and you grate up an onion. For this, for 6, I used 3 large onions, and I grated that up in there. I'm going to show you what we're doing with that in just a minute with the meat, but I just wanted to get this going yesterday. You can have your bell peppers if you like, cherry tomatoes, garlic goes in here. So what's going in with the chicken is the yogurt, the onion, and be sure you use all of the juice from the onion. Don't throw that juice out. That's really important. It helps to flavor the chicken. So the onion, the juice of 2 lemons, a teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, a teaspoon of turmeric, 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, and then some ground saffron. And I'll show you the saffron again in a minute. Time with us, you may not have seen how we do that. Those of you who have been with us for a while have seen me do this before, but I'll get that for you in just a second. So that's what goes into this marinade. Mix that all up, put your chicken in there, and let it marinate for several hours. Now, when you're gonna grab a piece to put on your skewer, you wanna just figure out how it's gonna go best and go right down the center of the piece and push it onto the skewer. You don't wanna pack them too tight because you want them to all be able to, get the heat and cook evenly. So you can see they're not tightly on there. This is like 6 little cubes per skewer is what I've got on here that's gonna fit on my grill. All right, let me rinse my fingers here. And I'll get back to showing you the saffron because that's one of the things we're gonna do. Oops, let me move that lid. So if you haven't seen me do this before, I use a mortar and pestle. And you take your saffron and just a pinch, maybe, I don't know what that is, a dozen or so little strands of the saffron. Alex, can you go to the front view, please? There we go. So as you can see, it's just maybe a dozen or so strands of the saffron. And of course, I think the Iranian saffron is the best, but you can get Spanish saffron and others. Then you're going to use your mortar and pestle and you're just going to really crush it well. Another thing you can do is to put a few grains of sugar or a sugar cube, a little bit of a sugar cube in there, and that's going to give it more, something else to kind of chew it up in there when you're using your pestle. So go ahead and do that, and then when you're done, you would just put that into your marinade as well. And we're going to use some of this on our rice later. So put this away. All right, we're going to save this for later. There we go. And then I'll show you, I also have some vegetables. And as I said, you can do this on your chicken if you want to, but I'm doing them individually. So I have kind of, I wouldn't say quartered my onion. I'd say I cut it in half and then cut each half into 3 pieces. So I've 6'd it. And then you just go straight into the pointy part of your onion and push it right onto the skewer. And again, you can use the bamboo skewers if you need to. I also have some really thin metal ones that are not flat like these are. These are kind of flat. They're maybe 1/4 of an inch wide, but then they're flat. I also have some that are just metal sticks like skewers, and you can use those as well. So this is how I would do the onion. Same thing with the green pepper if you're going to do pepper or red pepper or whatever. And then the tomatoes, we got the Campari tomatoes. I know a lot of people have their tomatoes in their garden coming out well now, so you can use those. You can even use the baby cherry tomatoes if you like. They're just going to cook a lot quicker. If you're going to go with a much bigger tomato, it's going to be hard because you're going to want to like cut it in half probably and put the half on there lengthwise. You don't want to go into the flesh of the tomato, that way. You want to do it sideways and go in, and because you don't want to lose all the juice and everything. So this works really well, this Campari sized tomato or plum tomatoes. So again, we're going to have those. Let's go back overhead. All right. So as you can see, we're getting our skewers. Here we go. We're getting our skewers all ready to go. And then I'm going to have Alex step in and bring the ground beef around. Hang on, let's put these over here for a minute. All right, so now we have our ground beef. And this is going to be a little different than the recipe you have because, as I said, when I made it known I was doing this today, I've had friends and family ask if they could come and eat with us this evening. So I'm doing like 1.5 times what the recipe is that you have. So I've actually got 3 pounds of ground beef here. So if I will have Alex come in and he's going to, he and my husband do the kebabs the hamburger kebabs when they're here. So normally, like your recipe would say 2 pounds, this is 3. You're gonna wanna put in egg, breadcrumbs, salt and pepper, garlic powder, paprika, and turmeric, and then some onion. And we're gonna explain the onion a bit because that's kind of an unusual thing to ask you to do, but I'll show you what I mean. Actually, let me do that first. So here's the ground beef. Again, like I said, we have our box grater. And as you can see, I have already grated some onion there. I'm going to show you what I mean by, go ahead and grate your onion. And some of these graters have multiple sizes of the grater on them. I'm using the smallest one. I've used the next size up too, but I think the smallest one works the best. So of course you want to be careful that you're not grating your fingers into the onion. That's happened before too. So go ahead and grate your onion into a bowl or dish of some sort, because this is going to be really juicy. And where we wanted the juice for the chicken kebab, for the marinade, it really helps that. We don't want that juice in this one. We want just the really fine onion. So as you can see, I'm kind of wiping this all down into the bowl. And you can see that there are some bigger pieces. I'm picking out these larger pieces. Kind of just feel your way through it and pick those out. Anything that snuck in there. Now you can see that I have a lot of juice in this onion. There's a lot of juice pooling on the sides. So what I'm going to do, Alex, we might need to go around and bring the camera over to the sink. Okay, I'm going to come over to my sink.
Oh, I need to switch. Just a second.
Okay. Sorry, he's going to switch to the front camera. There we go. All right. So now, oops, goes out of the way. Now you can see how much juice is in here. So you can pour it off as much as you can. See all that juice coming off the onion? Pour it off as much as you can and kind of squeeze it down. Squeeze it to get that onion juice out of there. If you're doing this, if you're doing both, and you want to do it all ahead of time and you're going to grate all your onion, go ahead and use that juice in your chicken. But you also use some of the grated onion in there as well. So you can see I still have water coming off. Squeeze it as best you can. And this is so that the ground beef isn't too loose, because we're gonna show you a couple ways to do it, but if you do it the traditional Persian way, it has to stick to these skewers. And so it can't be too watery. And that's why we're getting rid of as much of this onion juice as we can. Another thing that I have done is I have used a cheesecloth and put it in a cheesecloth and then squeezed it out. That just takes a little bit more effort, and I thought it would take a little too much time for today. So I'm just pressing it into my plate or my bowl here, getting as much of that out as I can. Isn't it amazing how much liquid is in there? There we go. All right, now go back over.
The rice is starting to boil.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now I'm going to put all that into my ground beef. All right, and as Alex just reminded me, my rice is starting to boil, so I'm going to come over and stir it just a bit. And as you can see, it's boiling. It's got a little bit of a foam on top, but that's good. We want it to keep boiling, and we're going to keep an eye on that, because in just a few more minutes, we're going to be dumping it and doing something different. But we're going to let that continue for just a few more minutes. All right. Now back over to the ground beef. There we go. Alex went and got a bowl. This is just a bowl of water because when you're going to do the ground beef, you're going to be putting it on the skewers and your hands need to be wet so that the ground beef doesn't stick to your hands. So we have that ready to go. We also have all of our other ingredients. And again, in your recipe, which is here, yes, okay. I gave you the amounts, but again, I'm doing quite a bit more than that. I'm doing 1.5 times. So I'm going to be adding 1.5 the amount. So there's my salt. Pepper. Turmeric, I always say it wrong. It's turmeric, but I say turmeric. So the turmeric is 1 tablespoon. I'm going to go with about 1.5 tablespoons or even 2. I think it really flavors it. Then for the paprika, we're going to do 1 tablespoon for your recipe, but again, I'm going to do closer to 2 tablespoons to make sure it's well flavored. I need the garlic powder and my breadcrumbs. So the breadcrumbs, we said 1 cup. So I'm going to do about 1.5 cups. There we go. So here's my cup. Now you can use any dry breadcrumbs or you can make your own with just bread. If you have, you know, some semi-stale bread around or the heels of the bread, you can just grind that up in your food processor. There we go, about 1.5 cups. We'll see how that goes. We may add more later once we see how it's working. All right, and there's my garlic powder. And for that we said 1 teaspoon. So we'll go with like 2 teaspoons. All right. You can use plain breadcrumbs. I happen to have seasoned breadcrumbs, which have a little bit of parsley and other flavor in them. It's not a big deal. You can use whatever you have. And then for yours, you would use 1 egg. We're going to use 2 because we have more meat. There we go. And I'm going to let Alex start working that together there. And I'm going to clean up a bit. One of the most important things about making this ground beef kebab, the Khoobideh, is that you have to really, really mix it all together well. What you want to do is start breaking down the parts of the meat so that it sticks together really well. So you're just going to keep working it, probably 5 minutes or so. Until it's just all really mixed together well, it's incorporated. Now, I'm not encouraging this, but when my husband makes this, he tastes the raw meat. he puts it in his mouth to see if it tastes right. He spits it out. He doesn't eat it, but he wants to make sure that it tastes right. I don't do that, and I'm not encouraging you to, but I'm just giving you a little hint about how some of the true Persians do it. I think you can also, once you've started, once you've gotten used to doing this and you've done it a couple times, you'll get a feel for what it should look like, what the coloring should be with the turmeric and the paprika and everything that goes in it. It's a real workout. It's kind of like kneading dough, but more. So.
The packaging from her.
Yep.
Again, if any of you have any questions or need us to slow down, just let us know, either in the chat or you can unmute and ask. is much easier to do when you have a smaller amount of meat.
Yeah, he has quite a lot there. A pound or two is a lot easier to do.
Unfortunately, whenever we do this, we usually end up having large parties come in and have to make a lot. Everybody wants some.
It also reheats really well, so it makes great leftovers. So as you can see, he's really working it in there. How's it feel? You think you need any more breadcrumb or?
It's looking like it'll stick together pretty well.
Okay.
Tamara
Yes.
and Alex, Sarah wants to know, can you use brown basmati rice for the rice part of it, for the rice dish?
I've never used brown basmati. I've only ever used, the white basmati, but I mean, I would say give it a try.
And then I had a question about, is this dish used for any sort of special celebration, or is it just like a summer every time thing that you guys do?
Yeah, this is just pretty much a family dish. And they will prepare the meats ahead of time a lot of times if they're going on like a picnic. Persians are very, very into picnics and eating outside and being out in nature. So if they're going somewhere where there are grills, they'll prepare all the meat ahead of time and then put it on the skewers at the park and grill it there. So it is an outdoor kind of summertime thing, but honestly, we've been known to do it in the winter as long as, we have a grill out on our deck. So as long as it's not snowing or raining and we can actually go in and out to cook the meat, we'll even do it in the winter just because we like it. And one of the things I'm going to show you though, once we get this all mixed, is that if you don't have these skewers, because I'm assuming none of you probably do unless I have any Persians watching, you can do these into kind of like patties, like you would a ground beef patty. They do shape them slightly differently if they're going to do it that way. And that also allows you to cook it faster. If you're cooking this for a big crowd, those skewers take time and you have to clean the skewer between each use. So you want to maybe use it in patties on your grill, or if you want, you can even use a frying pan and cook them in a frying pan in the patties form. Okay, so I'm going to give Alex a skewer.
Yeah, once this gets to the right consistency, you'll start to notice it does stick to your hands a little bit, and whenever you pull it apart, it forms very well. It's very firm and it sticks together a lot.
So these are the skewers I was talking about. And as you can see, they're about, maybe an inch or so wide, maybe a little less. And then they're very, thin, but the typical Khoobideh skewer that they would use, it has a wooden handle, and I've seen some that don't have the wood. They're just metal all the way down. And in that case, of course, you're going to have to use some kind of a hot pad to turn them. But these are really nice. We have gotten ours anytime we've gone to Toronto or up to Montreal, down to Washington, D.C. There are Persian grocery stores where you can get a lot of these ingredients, and you can get these skewers. You can get the stovetop samovars, which I've shown you before. But if you don't visit those cities, you can also order them online. Both of my son-in-laws had asked for some fairly recently. And so I ordered theirs from an online shop called Persian Basket. It's out of, it has a facility in Los Angeles and another one in Atlanta. And so the one in Atlanta is the one that my stuff seems to come out of, I guess, because we're on the East Coast. So you can just look for kebab skewers on Persian Basket, or just Google Iranian grocery store, online grocery store, and you'll see other places that you can order those. So Alex is going to do just a couple skewers for us to show us what we're going to do with this.
So I went and washed my hands a little bit to get some of the chunkier parts off. And now that my hands are a little cleaner, I'm getting them wet with the water here before I grab my big piece, because that's just going to keep it from getting on your hand. And it's usually a little bit off on the first few I grab, but basically you want to have like about a palmful, like something like that. Just about
like a baseball, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit like a little smaller than
a baseball.
Smaller than a baseball. And then you want to try and like work it into a little bit of an oblong shape in your hand by just rolling around a bit. And then once you get like that, you just stick it right onto the thing and cut into it sort of a little bit. And then once it gets to the other side of the skewer, you start to pack it in.
Go a little slower.
And you start slowly working your way up on it and flattening it out as you go. And again, we have, can you get the pan over here? So our, again, like we said, you're not going to be putting these directly on the grill. You want to have them sort of suspended over the grill. So you'll need to have something to keep them up above. Sometimes we've used like bricks that we have just lying around that we can sit on the grill, or we recently got a nice rack that can suspend stuff like that. And as you can see, I'm just kind of working it up the skewer and try not to, any time it might get thin in the spot, and I try to cover that back up and make it a little thicker. You want it to be fairly thin on the stick, but then like spread along it and still one solid piece. And you're just using your hand to keep it in that more oblong shape. So you see like there, I accidentally got a little bit of it exposed. So I'm just gonna try and push some more of the meat over. And you'll notice this stuff sticks together very well. It'll form very solidly onto the skewer here. And then it seems like about the right size. We've been estimating using our pan here. Yeah, so that should be good.
It's a little loose on the end.
Yeah. So once you get it done, once you get it to the right size and stuff and everything seems nice and compacted, you want to pinch the ends a little bit. You want to get them nice and tightly onto the skewer. These are all things that my dad taught me as we were doing this. Sort of, whenever it came time to do one of these, we'd always work together to.
Yeah, because as I said, we have like 8 skewers, but our grill will only let us do about 6 at a time. And so, you know, when you figure probably each person will eat 2 of those, if you've got a big family or you're having a party, you want to kind of get a head start and get a lot of them made up in advance. You can just, what we do is we put a big platter in the oven and we turn the oven on like 100, 150 just to keep them warm. And then as we go and we take them off the skewers, we transfer them to that platter in the oven to keep them warm. And then we just keep going until we get it all done. So, you know, the 3 pounds we've got here now is probably going to take, I would say, 16 to 24 skewers. So it's gonna be a while. We'll be doing this as soon as we're done here to get ready for our guests this evening.
What do you mean we?
That's what I mean. Okay, so you can see he's going a little bit faster now than he's shown you one time. So it goes a little faster, but it does take some trial and error. And you'll notice if you're putting your meat on your stick and it's not sticking well, something's not quite right about your meat. You might need a little more breadcrumb, or you might need to add some more egg to it. So you just, it's kind of a, has to be almost just right to stick well, which is why, you know, doing it this way is great. And this is a traditional way, and it does come out very different. But I'll let him show you how we would also do this with some patties, and we'll put those on our grill as well.
Tamara, I have an idea. Can you loan Alex out for us to do this in our places? See, that would be a nice side hustle, Alex.
For a donation to WPSU.
So again, you're going to get into a ball first. It's nice and smooth out. And then again, you want to try and get a little oblong shaped.
Yeah, this is what's different about the Persian patties as opposed to a hamburger. They tend to do them in an oval oblong shape. So that's how you can tell. And you want it to be fairly thin.
Yeah, really. I'm spread it out a little with your both hands. And yeah, start flattening it out.
There you go.
Yeah. Do you want to just put it on the?
Yeah, you're gonna just put it here and maybe do one more. Yeah, yeah, a little smaller maybe.
And yeah, I just, between rounds, I keep dipping my hands in the water here so the meat doesn't stick to my hands really well. The turmeric and stuff inside this, you'll find, is very it coats your hands over time. So you want to be careful about not letting it get too stuck on, or else you have to wash it all off, and it'll take some soap and stuff to get it off.
Yeah, I think it's between the fat that's in the meat, and that's the other thing I wanted to mention about the meat. We have been getting like a quarter cow with some family members for a while, and I think this meat is about 80-20. And so you don't really want to go, I'd say, any less fat than the 20%. I know I used to really want to do like the 90-10, just because I thought it was healthier to have the leaner meat, but you're going to find that it doesn't stick together as well, and it doesn't work as well because it needs that fat content to work. Now, before we go out to the deck to start grilling, I want to show you, because I had taken my rice off the burner because it was ready to dump. So let me get the half. Oh, your hands. Okay. Yep. I'll wash the hands.
This turmeric will get everywhere if you let it, so gotta be careful.
Yeah, you'll find that your hands might be stained yellow after working with the ground beef and or the chicken, especially your fingernails. But it'll go away when you start doing the dishes. Okay. So he's going to get the camera. I have a colander here, and so I'm going to put that in the sink, and I'm going to dump my rice into the colander. So you can see it's steamy, and I'm going to just run some water in my pan and pour that over the rice, because we're kind of stopping the cooking process of the rice right now. So I'm going to just spray it with a little bit of cold water to kind of stop the cooking process. It's not completely cooked, but that's intentional because we're going to cook it some more here in just a minute. All right, let's go back to the stove. All right, here we go. All right, back to the stove. Now I'm going to turn my heat back on, and I'm going to use a little bit of butter in the bottom of my pan. A couple tablespoons. And what I did ahead of time was I took a tortilla and I cut it to fit in my pan. So this was a little bit too big for me. So I used my kitchen shears to just kind of trim some of the edges off until it would fit inside my pan. And now once I get my butter melted, I'm going to drop this tortilla into the pan and let it start cooking a little bit. So want it to brown up just slightly. Now it's starting to sizzle. I can hear it sizzle a little bit, so I know it's starting to brown up a little bit on the bottom, and I can see the tortilla starting to get soft. So that's kind of what I want. Now I'm going to just flip it over so that it's had some of that butter and that browning on this side, and I flipped it over to do it on the other side. Now I'm turning my heat down to medium. On my stove, that's about 4. So now that my heat's down on medium, I'm going to take the rice that I had stopped the cooking process on and make sure it's all nice and separate. So I'm kind of slowly pushing it into the pan, and I'm pushing it into the middle of the pan so that it kind of forms almost like a pyramid shape, and then does its own, lets gravity send it out toward the edges of the pan. And there's a reason for that. So we're going to just get this nicely into the pan, making sure, like I said, that it's all nice and separate grains. Nothing's too mushed together. We don't want to force anything to smash the rice or break the grain. Okay. a little bit like a chimney. If you noticed, it's kind of raised in the top here in the center. Now, what you can use is take your spoon and stick it down into the rice to create some steam holes. Because you want that rice to steam. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is take some more of my butter and put that into pats all around the top. So it's going to melt and drain down through the rice and end up down on the bottom where the tortilla is. And that's how we're going to get that crispy, crunchy tahdig. So there we go. Now, the key ingredient here is to use a clean kitchen towel. It needs to be highly absorbent. So I like to use 100% cotton. I think these are just cheap IKEA towels, but that's because they're 100% cotton and they work really well. So what you're going to do is take your lid. Now this is a tight fitting lid that fits on my pan, and you're going to put it into the towel and wrap the towel around it nice and tight, tucking all the edges up. This one has an open handle, so I can kind of tuck them into the open handle of my lid. And then I put it on my pan nice and tight, making sure that none of your towel is hanging down. I mean, I've got my burner is turned down to medium, so it's not flaming up or anything, but you just want to be sure that you're not going to set your towel on fire. I have also sometimes when I've had to use a pan that doesn't have this open lid or open handle style, I have sometimes just used a rubber band and tied it, put it around the top of the towel to keep it uptight up top of my rice. So that's how that is, and it's going to cook right on medium for about 30 minutes is what it usually takes. All right, any other questions right now? All righty, we're going to let that go, and then we are going to, let's cover up this ground beef, and I will let Alex bring the tray, and I will hold the camera, and we will move out to the deck. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, I got it.
Oh, okay. All right, so our grill has been warming up here for a while now. So we were talking before about keeping the stuff above the grill. We have this small rack here that we use. Before, though, like I said, we used to just use these bricks that we would just line up along the side of the grill and be able to suspend stuff like that. But now with this, we can just go ahead and sit these on top of here.
Is that the right angle?
Yeah, that's good. And honestly, my dad is usually the one that handles the grilling part of this, so this is a little bit different for me. But we're gonna be seeing how this goes. Should be fine. Oh yeah, so vegetables are a little bit less.
I think you can do them on
Yeah,
the
probably.
rack.
Yeah.
I
We
think
don't have
we
many
put some up
things.
there normally because we got the rack
So many
full.
things.
Yeah, but I think they'll work fine on the rack.
This is what we were talking about, trying to get things not super far down on it, because even still we need to get it in here on this. Just go too far back.
Right. So what he's saying is, like, I purchased this. I think I got it on Amazon with just it was specifically a rack for making kebabs. But if you don't have that, like you said, we used to just use a few bricks and kind of line them up along the back and the front and lay the sticks on the bricks. So now the ground beef, the patties, he's just going to put directly on the grill itself.
Now, what he does also is he uses this brick kind of on the edge of our grill there, so that
You
the,
see the skewers are sticking out.
yeah,
They're not going to be able to close the grill like that. But since we have the brick here, keep it open.
yeah, so you can see it kind of just keeps the grill open enough that it's not going to disturb the skewers as they're cooking, but it's keeping that heat in. I don't know if you can see inside the grill there. So that's how it's going to go. Now this is going to take a little time, so Alex will keep an eye on those from time to time, and we're going to go back in and do our salads and our beverage. Okay. All right. Right back in. And we're back. Okay, let me move this out of the way. And get going with our salads. Now, if you were with me for the Persian New Year that we did, you have seen these salads before, but these are very, very traditional salads. So this is what we typically use. The first one I'm going to do is masto khiyar. This is the Persian yogurt and cucumber salad. And so I use the English cucumbers. If you want to use the regular cucumbers that you might grow in your garden, you can. I would just, if you're going to do that, I would suggest scooping out the big seeds. They're a little tough. Let's go overhead. So I had already cut some of them up, as you can see, but I'm going to go ahead and just do the last bit here to show you what I normally would do. So I take these into long pieces and then chop them into just little cubes, pretty small. Okay, now I will normally go ahead and salt and pepper my vegetables before I put the yogurt in. So, and again, the salt and pepper is very much to your own taste. Just remember that the yogurt is not very salty. So what you would normally put on your vegetables, remember that yogurt's not salted either. So this is one of those things that once you get it going and you get it in there, you can definitely taste it because it's safe to taste as it is. Now, again, I used just a whole milk yogurt, plain. Make sure it's not vanilla, it's just plain. And so I'll use an entire container of that with one large English cucumber. This salad is very popular even with my extended family. My mom and my sister, who are not Persian at all, really enjoy the salad and make it on their own frequently. We're gonna stir that up, get all of that in there. And then what makes it even more special and makes it really the Persian variety of this dish, because as you can tell, there are a lot of other Middle Eastern countries who do something very similar. There's an Indian dish that's very similar. There's a Turkish dish that's very similar. But I think what makes this one particularly Persian or Iranian is the use of the dried mint. So this is dried mint that you can, again, get at one of those Middle Eastern markets. My husband brings mine back from Iran or wherever he's coming from. But you're going to take, and again, you can add this more or less to your taste, but it's dried. So, you know, it's gonna have to rehydrate. So I would suggest you make these salads an hour or so at least before you're planning to serve it, just to give that mint plenty of time to rehydrate. So you're gonna stir that in. I have also sometimes made this if I've been short on regular yogurt. I've also used plain Greek yogurt in this, and it does make it a lot thicker, but you can certainly do that if you like. I actually kind of like that version as well. It's different, but it's thicker and creamier, so feel free to do that if you like. So this is Masto Hiar, which is the yogurt and cucumber salad. And that's really all there is to it. Once you've given it some time to kind of let the salt melt into it and let the mint rehydrate, give it a taste. And if it tastes like it needs a little more salt, go right ahead. If you feel like you've gotten it a little too salty, add a little bit more yogurt and that'll cut some of the salt. So that's one salad. And then on to the next one. This is called Salad Shirazi, and this originated in the town of Shiraz, hence the name Shirazi. And this is basically cucumber, onion, and tomato. And so I had pre-cut, again, quite a bit of that for us, but I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it off. So I'm gonna cut my onion into really small little chunks. Okay, so it's just kind of diced up, fairly small. Same with the tomato. So I've got a tomato here. I'm going to kind of cut it into sections and then cut up each section so that they're a little bit smaller than bite size, I guess. You're going to get a little bit of tomato, a little bit of cucumber, and a little bit of onion in every bite. Is anybody growing tomatoes this year? Yeah? Our cherry tomatoes are doing really well. Our larger tomatoes haven't done so great, so I don't know what went wrong. Maybe too much rain? I don't know. It's been very rainy. All right, and now my cucumber, again, I usually cut it in half and then just take some long strands of it there. And dice it up. Okay. Now, for this dish, we're also going to use salt and pepper, and again, pretty much to your taste, but you got a lot of vegetable there. And then some pepper. And again, we're going to go with that dried mint. So you can do that to your taste, but I like it to be pretty nice and minty. So I'd say maybe a couple tablespoons or teaspoons of that. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use, you can use lemon or lime. I like it best with the lemon. And I had already put some lemon in this dish to start with, but I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more here. And you can use, of course, any reamer or, you know, lemon squeezer that you have that you prefer. This is a fairly new one that I got recently, and I kind of like it. It's a little bit easier on my hands than the one I had where I had to twist the lemon every time. So this is easier because it's just a squeezing thing, and I can use both hands to squeeze it. So lots of lemon juice there. So as you can see, these are fairly healthy salads, which you're going to need because you got a lot of butter in that rice. A little lemon seed there. One thing that I didn't talk to you about back when we were doing the chicken kebab, when you're doing the marinade, I find it easiest to put my marinade together all in like a gallon Ziploc bag, and then add the chicken chunks to that once I've got it all stirred up in that Ziploc bag, and you can kind of work the bag to kind of get it all mixed together. Then put your chicken breast in there, and that way you know, it's not taking up so much room in your refrigerator as you're marinating it. You just have that Ziploc bag in there. So that is this salad. So now I want to just make sure I mix it all together well so that that lemon juice is all throughout. And, you know, the tomato and the cucumber and the onion will all start to kind of add their juices to the lemon juice. I think that the lemon juice kind of reacts to all of these vegetables and causes them to all sort of start releasing their juice as well. And if you feel like you need more lemon juice or you want to try some lime juice in there, feel free to do that. And again, I would make this at least an hour, maybe even a little more before you plan to serve it. And, you know, if you don't care for onions, you know, some people really don't like raw onion or can't eat raw onion, you don't have to include that. You can just do it with the tomato and the cucumber, or try something else in there if you like. And I know it's hard for you to see at this point, but I'm getting a nice kind of reddish colored. The juice is turning red now because I think some of the tomatoes are releasing some of their juice. And then the mint is also going to kind of flavor it and color the juice a little bit. But there's definitely a lot more juice in here than I have put in. So you can tell that the vegetables are releasing their juices now. So yeah, let's let that sit while everything else is going. You can make these salads as much as a day in advance if you'd like to, you know, just to give yourself time if you're doing everything else as well. So I'll put those aside. And the last thing I'm going to show you, or Alex, do we need to look at the meat? Do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say we just I've been keeping an eye on the meat in the background while we've been doing this, and I just gave it a little bit of a flip. I'm just turning the skewers over.
Okay, we'll go out and look at those one more time when he turns them. But first I'm going to show you. I mean, but you're going to turn them again. Yeah. So next I'm going to show you how to make the duke. Okay, so this is a little bit of an acquired taste. I will admit that I wasn't a big fan of it when I first tasted it, but the more I tried it, the more I liked it. And one of the things I really like, I'm just using tap water today, or water from my fridge, but you can also use like a plain seltzer with it that gives it some fizz. And that's another way that it's sold in Iran. and that gives it a little bit more of a sizzle. So what you're going to do is, again, I have the full fat plain yogurt. And let's see, I'm going to give Alex a pitcher. Can you get some water out of the fridge while I'm doing this? All right, so I am going to go ahead and pour some of my plain yogurt into my pitcher here. Ought to do it. That's probably a little over a cup. This again is going to be salt to your taste. Start out with, you know, what you think it might need, and then you can add as you see fit, because that yogurt obviously is not very salty. And again, this gets a little bit of that dried mint. Okay, that should be good, Alex. Yeah, don't need a ton. There we go. You're gonna give me a whisk. And so then I'm gonna add about just as much yogurt or water as I had yogurt. So another cup, cup and a half of water. I don't think that one's gonna fit. I need a smaller one. Yeah, that one I think will work. There we go. Okay. So then you're gonna whisk it all together. And when this is the correct consistency, as I said in the recipe, it should be about the consistency of full fat milk. And again, you want to allow the time for the salt to dissolve and then give it a taste to see what you think. Could you get a glass of ice? And I prefer this served over ice, but you can serve it however you like, just as it is, but I think it works really well over ice. A little bit more. That's good. There we go. Okay. So normally I would probably let this sit for a few minutes to let that salt dissolve a little bit more before I would taste it, but I'm going to go ahead and pour this. There we go. Yeah, I think for me, it probably, like I said, I'll let it sit a few minutes and see if the ice or the salt dissolves anymore. If not, I would probably put just another pinch or so of salt in there and stir it around just to give it a little bit more salt. But that's what it looks like. It's a yogurt drink. It's a little salty and a little minty, and it's very cool and very refreshing. So it's, you can see that the Persians use yogurt for everything. That's perfect. Okay, so give that a try. You can make yourself 1 cup, using all your yogurt, but give that a try and see what you think and let me know. All right, so would we like to go back out and look at the meat now as it's cooking? Okay, so you can see he's turned the kebabs once and he's used a spatula to flip the patties there.
Yeah, the patties might have been cooking a little too hot to start with. Trying to turn it down a little. The patties usually I find them easier to do in actual pans. Because yeah, these are getting a little too cooked.
You can put them up on the top shelf.
Yeah.
Okay, but as you can see, the tomatoes are starting to kind of blister and break apart a little bit. The onion is browning on the edges, and the chicken is browning, and the ground beef obviously has browned a bit too. Now, I like ground beef cooked really well. It's kind of a debate in our family. Not everyone likes it as done as I do, but this looks like it's doing pretty well. I think it's browning pretty well.
It did split a little. I think maybe we didn't have enough egg or something and it was a little too dry, so it's starting to split a little bit. Normally it would stay all compact and stuff, but might have just been a little off on the mixture this time. We don't have our expert here with us for making sure it's all right.
So that's what it's going to look like while it's cooking.
We might be able to
Alright.
get this Khoobideh off.
Okay, let's head back in. See how things are going with the rice. Okay, so let's go this way. So one of the ways you can tell if your rice is ready, and I know this is going to sound really crazy, but one of the ways you can tell is by wetting your finger. So you lick your finger and you touch the side of the pan. If it sizzles, that means your rice is ready. Mine's not sizzling yet. So my rice is not quite ready. So it hasn't really been 30 minutes though, so that's fine. So that's where we're at. While we're kind of waiting for both of those to finish up, because I do want to show you how to plate those and how to take those off. I want to explain that we have scheduled the next 2 World Kitchens coming up, which is exciting for me that I have 2 of them scheduled already. And so the one for August is actually going to be a week later than usual to accommodate a vacation schedule for our chefs. But this is going to be fun because this is going to be World Kitchen Tunisia. And I've not had Tunisian food, but I'm really excited to try it. This is my really good friend Jujeh and her husband Steve are going to be our chefs. So they're going to come into the kitchen on August 29th at 2 o'clock. And we'll be learning how to make, I think, 3 different Tunisian dishes. Hopefully sometime next week, the registration and recipes will be up on our website. But hopefully you will be able to join us for that. And then in September, we will be celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month with a friend who is going to be showing us how to cook some Mexican dishes. So those are the next 2 months. And then in October, I'm planning on doing kind of a special World Kitchen on charcuteries and trying a bunch of different types of charcuterie boards and explaining a little bit more about that. I attended a charcuterie session through World Campus a while back, and it was interesting, but it got me thinking and got me doing some more research. And so I've got some fun things to show you. So that's where we're at. If anybody happens to be a chef in your own right, or you would love to share some of the things you make, let me know, because we are planning for the next several months. And so especially over the winter, if you'd like to share something with us, let me know. I'm thinking about maybe in December doing international soups, since it's going to be nice and cold out. So if international soup that you really enjoy, let me know about that one. So yeah, just whatever you have on your mind, let us know. We would love to have you share as well. So
Just try and take the meat off, even though it's a little early, just so you can see.
Well, I was going to show them how to make the zeresh real quick.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we'll go back over to the stove. Let me grab a pan here. This is what's going to go on the top of our rice. And some of you had messaged and asked about the zeresh. So zeresh in the United States is called barberries. And this is how I get them in a package that comes from the Middle Eastern market, or as I said, my husband brings them to me. So what we're going to do with these are kind of a sour berry, and these are dried, but they're not dried hard. These are still kind of soft, so you can pinch them. They're kind of like a raisin that hasn't gotten too hard. So what we're going to do to these is in a skillet, sorry, turn that back up this way. I'm going to melt a little bit more butter. And as you can see, there's a lot of butter involved in Persian cooking. Maybe a couple tablespoons of butter in my skillet. Sorry, I know my rice is kind of in the way. Let me see if I can switch these maybe. Put the rice over there, bring this one over here. There we go. Turn that one down and turn that one up. There we go. All right, now I'm gonna melt my butter. And not only does this make it beautiful, it's got a really great flavor. The sweet and sourness of the berries really goes well with the rice and the meat dishes. So my butter's melting, and I'm gonna put a cup or so of the barberries in my pan. So Carolyn, if you want to try to make these, you can just come grab some barberries from me. You don't have to buy them.
Thank you. But you said international shops in the State College Market do have them.
I'm not sure. I hope so. You might try the new Turkish market down in Hamilton Square, but I know you definitely get them online at any of those Persian markets I was talking about before, Persian Basket or Sadaf or any of them. So what we're going to do is just kind of let these berries kind of soak up some of that melted butter. And we don't want to overcook them, so we don't want to burn them. So we want this to be fairly low. Mine's on about 2.5 on my gas stove here. And we're going to just let them soak it up and kind of rehydrate themselves slightly with that butter. And what I'm also going to do is add in a little bit of my crushed saffron. Saffron makes everything better. All right. So that's going to make the butter a beautiful color as well. All right. I think those are about ready. Doesn't take long at all for that. Another thing you can do when you're going to make this, a lot of people will add slivered almonds to this. You can add slivered almonds in with your zeresh. You could also, what I've seen a lot of people do, and it's another dish, you can put some orange peel, dried orange peel in with it. And it also gives it a really nice flavor and a beautiful look on your rice. So while, give it the test. Almost, it's almost there. All right, how are we gonna do that with the meat? Do you wanna take the platter out and do it at the, okay, so you'll need a tortilla. All right, we're gonna take the meat off the skewers and show you how that works.
I already took one of the patties off because it was getting a little too done.
Okay, there we go.
Here.
All right.
This off here first, quick. And you notice here we are sitting them on top of a tortilla. You can do without the tortilla, but it helps absorb some of the juices. And
you could also use pita bread if you have pita.
let's get these tomatoes first here.
Yeah, the tomatoes are, oh, they're gonna slide. There you go. There we go. Taking our tomatoes off. Oops. All right. I think the onions can stay. Let's just go with the ground beef for now.
So yeah, like I said, normally these would be a little more solid, but they say it kind of broke apart, I think. So what you do here is you want to pinch the bottom of it with your tortilla and just
the top too. You have to do the top.
oh right,
first.
Doy, sorry. That's why it kind of was not
Yep,
going to move. You gotta break it first
Yeah,
off the
you
top
have to-
and then you slide it down.
Right. So loosen the top and loosen the bottom just slightly, and then it should slide right off your skewer.
Yeah. So
Let's
like
do
I
it with
said,
the other one here. I'll show you again.
so yeah,
Loosen the
figure loosen top part.
And then loosen the bottom, and then it should slide right off.
Yeah.
There we go.
Like I said, ours are the mixture might have been a little off, so it's splitting up a little bit, but
And there's
should-
some of the, you think the chicken's ready or no?
I mean, might be.
Yeah, I think we're gonna probably have to warm it in the oven anyway, so go
Yeah.
ahead and take those off. All right, we'll do the chicken also. Same thing, you want to kind of loosen the front so that it slides well.
Loosen each of them kind of.
And then
Right on.
there we go. Yep. Losing it. Okay, there we go. All right, got one more chicken there.
I think Mo would be very proud.
All right. And the
Yeah,
onion, we might let the onion go a little bit longer. It's up to you. You know, you can decide how cooked you want your onion, but it's the same process. You can just slide them right off onto your skillet or your platter. And so then, of course, we're going to store this in, like I said, that really low oven to keep it warm while we continue to make more and more and more skewers.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wash all of these skewers between each use too, just to make sure nothing gets like really stuck on.
Right. Okay, so we'll come back in and I will show you how we're going to plate up the rice. All right. Oh, my box is missing, Alex. There we go. Okay. Yep. And you also can use the tortilla that you use to kind of cover it and keep the moisture in. You're going to put them in the oven. There we go.
That tortilla is also very tasty once everything is done, because it's absorbed a lot of juices from
Yeah.
getting things off.
There we go. Okay, so next up, we are going to handle the rice. So let me pull this over. And Alex, the platter's right behind you. Can you get a hot plate out, please? Okay, there we go. Now, we're going to take our lid off. As you can see, it's pretty steamy.
Doing saffron.
Not right now. It's in the Zerach.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a platter here. I use a pretty big one. So what I'm going to do is actually use a saucer, and I'm going to scoop my rice out using just a saucer. So this is going to allow it to not put a lot of pressure on it, not break the grain of the rice, but scoop it out so that it stays nice and separate. And now I'm getting down to the bottom where I can feel my tortilla on the bottom. So I want to get the rice off the tortilla, but I don't want to damage it. I don't want to break it up just yet. So I'm just going to kind of lightly scrape all the rice off the tortilla. That. All right. Now, as you can see, my tortilla is in the bottom still, and I've gotten all the rice off. Alex, could you please give me a spatula? And what I want to do now is, using my spatula, I want to kind of pull that tortilla up. Okay, and as you can see, it is browned. Now, I'm going to kind of break that into pieces that I can scatter around the perimeter of my rice, because this is called the tahdig, and everybody wants a piece of the tahdig, or in the case of my family, they fight over the tahdig, and they all try to get it. And when you're serving it up, you have to be careful, because they will try to steal it and you won't have any to go on your dish. This is the crunchy part that everybody loves. You can do this with potato, thinly sliced potato. You can do it with pita bread, or as I did today, you can do it with a tortilla. Okay, so I have that scattered around my dish. And now I'm going to put my zeresh right on top. Okay. So now to give you all an example of what we are having for dinner this evening.
Your
What?
your phone camera flip back over.
Oh, okay. There we go. All right. This is an idea of what's going to be on our table this evening. We're going to be having the salad Shirazi.
I was not updating Google.
There we go. The salad Shirazi, the zeresh polo, which is the rice with the barberries, the masto khiyar, the yogurt salad, and then our variety of chicken and ground beef and vegetables, kebabs, along with the doog to drink if you like. So that's our dinner tonight. As the Persians would say, befara means come and eat with us. If you have any questions, if I went too fast on anything, sorry, I just try to get it all in less than an hour and a half because I know it makes a long afternoon for everyone. The recipes are online. If you have any questions, please just let me know. And I think that's about it. Be sure and join us on August 29th for World Kitchen Tunisia with Zubeida Awanas and Steve Carpenter. Thanks very much.